Would you like to have more autonomy at work? Or a salary increase, maybe? Do you want people to follow your vision? That's why it's so important to be able to sell your ideas like a pro. And in today's episode, that's what you'll learn. I tested many different ways to get what I want from a conversation and came up with a method called trade. So tune in for today's episode. Episode 7, I talked about bad decisions imposed on you. And that's often because people still try to centralize decisions to benefit from economies of scale. And so often at work, I got bad decisions imposed on me, and I'm sure that you have too. And let me tell you a little story about my time when I was the CEO of this organization. We had submitted a plan where we would increase in revenue, but for that increase in revenue, we needed to build a platform. And so we had also included costs in that plan. And we were very confident that the plan would be approved because the revenues would already be higher than the costs as of year 1. So it would break even in the first year already. But then we were about to present the plans. The headquarters had already received everything in Excel in advance and in PowerPoint. And the day before presenting the plans, or 2 days before presenting the plans, my CFO got an email from the headquarters telling her, "Yeah, your plan is great, so keep everything as it is. We just want you to remove these extra costs." And so, of course, I was so angry because we had already a very optimistic and challenging budget to reach. But now they were expecting us to do these extra revenues and they removed all the extra costs. So on Excel, of course, it looked great, but it was impossible to realize. So I was really, really angry about this, and I was determined to get my investments back so that we could build a platform and deliver these extra revenues. And so let me share with you how I got my investments back. Because selling your ideas to the headquarters, to your boss, to your colleagues, or even in a conversation at home is really important, because if you nail that, if you manage to get what you want from a conversation, your life will be so much easier. You will get more autonomy at work. You could even ask for a salary increase. You can ask for extra investments for a project you have, or you could even ask some budgets to take a course, for instance, to develop yourself. But let me tell you how it works with the trade method. And before explaining the trade method, I just wanted to talk about mindsets again, because the first condition to get what you want out of a conversation is to believe. To believe that it's possible, to believe that you can change things, to believe that you will get what you want. I see too many people in organizations not even trying because they believe they have no choice. Yeah, well, it's like this. This was imposed on us. It's the management team. What can I do? It's like this. Or it's not in my job description to change this, so why should I even try? And I see that really a lot in organizations. People are having the consequences of bad decisions and they're getting the stress out of it and the negative emotions and the frustration. And then they don't even try to do something about it because they don't believe they can change things. So the first thing that you will always start with is believing that you can change things. And trust me, once you believe and once you keep believing, you will keep trying and you will, in the end, get what you want. So that's the first step, believe. And now let me explain the other steps of what I call the trade method, TRADE. And the first is T. So in my case, my investments were taking off, but I still was expected to deliver higher revenues, which was, of course, completely unrealistic. So I needed to do something about that. But my CEO, the CEO of the whole group, was a very proud man, and I knew that it wouldn't be a good idea in the middle of the meeting when he was surrounded with other people to say to him, no, this is not going to work, to really counter his decision. I knew he wouldn't appreciate it. And maybe think about it for you. Maybe it's not always a good idea to counter decisions in the middle of a meeting where other people are around. Or what I also see people do in many cases is they want to say something to somebody, but they're really nervous about it because, of course, countering a bad decision or asking for extra budget or for a salary increase are not easy conversations. And so what they do is that 5 minutes before a meeting, they go to their boss or to the person and they say what they have to say, blah, 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 and that person was not in the right mindset to hear that message. So the first T of the trade method is timing. Pick the right timing to have your discussion, and the right timing, but also the right place. So for my discussion, I asked my boss if we could eat together the night before in a restaurant, because that way he would be really 100% available to what I needed to say, and we were also in a nice surrounding to have this discussion. So pick the timing and the place that will allow both parties to be in the right mood for this conversation. That's the first thing you need to do when you want to counter a bad decision or have this conversation about something that you would like to have that's important to you. So T for timing. The second thing I want you to do is the R from results. Here again, what did I want? I wanted to be able to build that platform so that I could get the revenues, the extra revenues, so that I could get satisfied customers and deliver what we promised to our customers. And for that, I needed to be able to build it and to have investments. That was the result I wanted out of this conversation. But what I notice is that a lot of people, they enter conversations knowing what they want to say, but not thinking about the result they want to achieve. So you should always enter a conversation or a meeting knowing what your ideal outcome is of that meeting. Let me give you another example of this. In today's times, I know there are a lot of people who lack recognition. They have the feeling that they're working really hard, they're not having the impact they want, and sometimes they don't get any recognition from their boss. And they're frustrated about that because they have sacrificed a lot of things, they're working really hard, and they don't get the recognition. So it's important for them. But then they think, okay, I'm tired of this, I want to have recognition, and they enter a meeting with their boss, for instance, and they start shouting all their frustration. And instead, of course, of getting the recognition that they needed, they get even more blame or more frustration, and they end up not having what they want. That's why you always have to think about what you want to achieve before thinking about what you want to say. So if you want to achieve, for instance, more recognition, I noticed that the best way to get recognition is to give recognition. And when I say give recognition, it's of course well-meant recognition and not faking it. But when you give recognition to your boss, maybe you notice that he's also working very hard and sacrificing things and being stressed and that it's hard for them. Acknowledging this and saying, you know, it must not be easy for you, but I really appreciated that you did this and this. Often you will get recognition as well. So T for timing and place, are for results. Always think about your ideal outcome, the result you want to achieve before thinking about what you want to say. Then the next step is A, action. Okay, now that you have your timing in place, you set a date and an hour for your conversation, you know what you want to achieve. Now you can think about what are you going to say, what actions are you going to put in place to get what you want to achieve. And so in my case, I knew that if I would blurt out my frustration and say, and it's not possible, and you don't understand, and then blah, 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 that I would not get my investments back. Instead, if I would say to my boss, you know, I know you have a lot of pressure as well coming from the shareholders. I know it's not been easy because in the other countries, costs have been higher than expected while the revenues are lower. So I understand your position. It's not easy, but what you now asked from us is not possible. It's great. It looks great on Excel, but I can assure you that if you keep it like this, I will disappoint you. I will have a bad conversation with you about bad news in a couple of months or in a year because it's not realistic. So let's look at how we can solve this, because I know you have this big issue and I have an issue. Maybe we can find a way. So the third step, timing, result, action, is to think about what action will you put in place that will lead to your desired outcome. And I forgot to say this, but when you think about the result you want to achieve, I also want you to think about the result the other person wants to achieve. Because if you manage to find a way to achieve your results, but also the results of the other person, then of course it's a win-win and it will be much easier to sell. So now that you know what you're going to say or what you're going to do, what your desired result is, and when you're going to have this meeting, let's go to another dimension that is really important, and it's the D for disposition. And what I mean by that is you have to be in the best body and emotional disposition to have this conversation. Because if you are very frustrated and stressed and tired, you will probably not be in the best emotional disposition to put the action in place that will lead to the result you want to achieve. But also you have to pay attention to your body. So, for instance, to get these investments back, I first wanted to put myself in a disposition of being very focused, very determined. You know, my body in the front, my body really in this position where I wanted to achieve things. And then I thought about it and I was thinking, but that's not the right way, because if they're asking this, if they're removing my investments, it's not to piss me off, it's not to really annoy me. If they're doing this, it's because they have issues themselves. And so I think that the best body and emotional disposition for this conversation would be to be empathic, an open disposition, really relaxed, and being open and listen to what my boss had to say also. And be in an emotion where I am available and being able to listen and be empathic. And so for that, I needed to do something because I was full of frustration, I was full of anger, my body was really tensed. So I first had to change my body disposition. And I did that by going for a walk outside, by hugging my children. And on the way to the meeting that I had planned with him, I put some nice music that put me in a great mood. And only when I was in the right mood, the right emotion for that conversation, did I have did I start the meeting? So this is something really important, because if you want to listen to a colleague, but you're full of stress and you're only talking and talking and talking and taking all the space, that person will not be able to be listened to, will not be, and you will not get what you want from that conversation. So it's really important to think about your body disposition. So how are you sitting? How are you standing? How are your facial expressions? How are your shoulders? Are you very stable? Are you empathic? And also about your emotion. Are you in the best possible emotion to have that conversation? And if not, change it by doing something nice with your body, so that you are in another disposition to have this conversation. So this is a really important topic, because a lot of people, they don't pay attention to that. So for instance, people want a salary increase and they're afraid to ask because it's not easy to ask. And so instead of asking in a very stable disposition with a very clear voice, they will sit very small, make themselves very small, and maybe say, yeah, I would like to have a salary increase. And then, of course, the message didn't come across. So think about your body disposition, your tone of voice, the emotion, the best possible emotion to have the conversation you want to have. So T for timing, R for results, A for action, D for disposition. And the last step is, once you have prepared the whole conversation and that you have all these elements, I want you to envision your result. So, and not only envision your result, envision having this meeting, coming out of the meeting with the outcome that you wanted to achieve. So you have to envision that, but also try to envision the process. Envision yourself sitting there, saying the words you would like to say with the right body disposition and emotional disposition, and your boss or the other person really listening to you. And then you get what you want and you get out of this conversation with your big smile. And envisioning or visualizing is a great technique. And it's a technique used by top athletes, because when you imagine things and envision things in your head, so you play this little movie in your head with the words and the images, in fact, it's a great way of practicing, because your brain doesn't make the difference between you visualizing something or actually doing it. Of course, it makes a difference in the fact that you're not using the body functions, but it's a great way to practice, and it will make the whole thing much easier for you. So that was a trade method. That's how I usually got what I wanted from a conversation. That's how I got my investments back. That's how I got approval for many things that I needed approval for. And that's also what I used for difficult conversations or to get a salary increase. Now, if you like this episode, I have a free ebook and short video that described this methodology. And also in this free ebook, you will find examples of conversations to have for specific topics. So if you want a salary increase, I will describe there exactly the steps for you to get that salary increase. If you want to counter bad decisions, I will describe the steps. If you want more recognition, or if you want approval to take one of my programs or for something else, the steps are described in this ebook as well. Just go to the show notes of this episode and you will get your free ebook with a short video explaining to you how to use the trade method and to get what you want out of a conversation. And you will see that it will make all the difference. People will start following your vision, you will start having more autonomy, and it will change a lot because you won't have to work this hard anymore for too little impact. When you manage to sell your ideas like a pro, that's also when you start having great results and also getting promotions in your career or a higher salary, for instance. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you, or this podcast, I'll see you in the next episode where I talk about how I managed to increase profitability with 30% while almost not having to do anything within a team. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next episode.